I'm Rachel, and this is my Friday Reads video for June 7th, 2019, which is very exciting. I'm on time for the first time in forever. Let's see how long I can keep this up. But I'll keep the pressure of future weeks to the future and get on to the books for now. So the first book I have to talk about is my last read of May. This is The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. It is the first in a YA fantasy trilogy, and it's pretty much what I was hoping it would be, what I talked about in my last video. You know, it's kind of soap opera-y, kind of fun. We're mostly following Jude and her two sisters, but Jude is our protagonist. She is taken along with her two sisters to the land of Fairy because her older sister is her half-sister, and turns out her mother ran away from Fairy and married a mortal man and had mortal children because her mother is mortal, but her older husband came back to reclaim his lineage, as it were, with the half-sister, and decided to take the other two sisters as well, especially after he murders the two parents in a fit of rage, basically. So that's how we start out in our little prologue, and then we go 10 years into the future, which would be when the girls are in their late teens. They, or at least the two mortal twins, are trying to acclimate to the land of Fairy because it's the only land they know, but it's a very brutal place, full of crunching on bones and flesh and tricking people into all sorts of dangerous games, especially for mortals who, you know, we die much easier than the fairies. The two siblings are looking to sort of gain more prominence in the adult world of Fairy, and Jude's twin sister Taryn is trying to basically marry into power, and Jude wants to be a knight. And meanwhile, their half-sister really wants to flip the bird to everyone and return back to the mortal world. But anyway, Jude's plans are kind of foiled by the class bully, basically. One of the princes of Fairy, Carden, and his bullish group of buddies. They pick on her because they can, and most importantly, because she doesn't just sit and take it, even though they are much more powerful than she is. So it is a battle of the wills, which garners the attention of one of Carden's older brothers, who is in the line for succession, which is the major thrust of the plot. The old king is deciding to step down and give the throne to one of his children, and the prince who takes Jude to be his spy, which, bonus, humans can lie and fairies can't. This prince is favored to win, but, you know, he has some nefarious siblings in the wings as well who would rather they, you know, be crowned. So Jude basically goes into a world of political intrigues while continuing to sort of fight against the bullying of Carden and his mates, although, you know, getting into the world of political intrigues and Carden being a prince means she start to understand him a little bit better, and he gets more dimension as a character, even though he's never fully redeemable. And meanwhile, there's all sorts of angst as well with her sister Taryn. The fairies kind of pit them against each other, so it's a very enticing, juicy read. I kind of roll my eyes a little bit at the stereotypical badassery. Like, there's even an option in the book where you can advance in the courts of Fairy by playing the lute or doing something artistic, but of course, you know, I don't think anybody even thinks that that's a viable option. No, it's either, you know, marrying into something, which seems to be sort of the ultimate sign of weakness, maybe, or, you know, being a knight or being something, you know, aggressive and assertive. Although there are interesting ruminations about how to get power when you're the lowest on the totem pole going on in this book. And it kept my attention, and it really did exactly what I was hoping to. I really went through this book very quickly within a couple of days, and I'm looking forward to book 2. I'm on the waiting list for an audiobook at my library. So yeah, I did include this as my last read of May 2019 in my literary newsletter. I do one every month where I put in snippets from the Goodreads reviews of the books I've read that month. I also have a TBR and a book picture and a meme, and I feature one of my BookTube videos. Anyway, I will link that down below. My first official read of June is this book. This is Fruit of the Drunken Tree by Ingrid Rojas Contreras, which I just finished on Thursday, today, as I'm filming. I'm reading this now because I am wrapping up my unofficial involvement with the BookTube Prize, where earlier this year I picked out 12 books that I'd either read or wanted to read that were part of the Octafinals list. And so I'm down to my final 3 books that I hope to review at the end of the month. This one is the one that's still in the running. We recently had the semifinals, and this one's still going strong, whereas the other 2 books that I have left are not still in contention for the prize. So anyway, this is a book that takes place primarily in Colombia during the reign of Pablo Escobar. But we are following 2 young girls. One of them is Chula, who, when we meet her, she's about 7 years old. She lives in a gated community with her family, although her father is usually away working. So she mostly lives with her mother and her older sister. And as is custom, they are hiring a house girl to, help out with tasks around the house. And this girl usually comes from the slums. The girl they hire is named Petrona, who, when Petrona comes to them, she's about 13 years old. And we occasionally get her point of view, although most of the book is from Chula's point of view. And this roughly takes place from about 1988 to 1994. Petrona is sort of pressed by a boyfriend and his guerrilla contacts into doing something highly dangerous. And I guess I'll keep it there because I guess we're getting into what people might construe as spoilers, and it definitely impacts all of the characters in the later half of the book and where they end up. This is a very intriguing writing style, especially in the beginning. Chula is incredibly young and doesn't have a huge grasp of what's going on, so Rojas Contreras is not writing this like some sort of journalistic account of, okay, here's who was in power and what was happening. This is very much what a young, sheltered girl would see of the world. Petrona's sections were even more sort of vague. I think it was an artistic style to have her speak more lyrically about what was happening. It was one of those more stream of consciousness things. I mean, not as ungrounded as some of the stream of consciousness I've read, but certainly not a traditional narrative style either, much more focusing on her emotions and the specific scenes. I can see why people like this book. I mean, because of these emotional perspectives, particularly of how young girls are faring in this rather brutal, tumultuous time. But I think Chula's sections didn't necessarily work after a while because, years were passing, and she was a much older character at the end of the book than she was in the beginning, and yet I felt like there wasn't much change into her perspective. Like it was like she was still a little girl, or perceiving the world the way she did when she was a little girl. So I felt like that kind of took me out of the story a little bit. But overall, I did like it, found it moving, a very engaging read, and I'm glad that the BookTube Prize gave me a chance to get to this. Anyway, next on my docket, which I will technically be starting on Friday, I believe, should be Holy Lands by Amanda Sthers. I'll be reading it for my book club, which really doesn't meet until the end of the month, but I figured this would be a good read for me now because I am going to Baltimore for the weekend. My aunt and uncle are in town visiting my parents, and my niece is having a ballet recital, so I'll have less time to read, but this is only about 161 pages, so I'm hoping I can finish it over the weekend. So anyway, I'll read from the flap. As comic as it is deeply moving, Holy Lands chronicles several months in the lives of an estranged family of colorful eccentrics. Harry Rosenmerk, is an aging Jewish cardiologist who left his thriving medical practice in New York to raise pigs in Israel. His ex-wife Monique ruminates about their once happy marriage even as she quietly battles an aggressive illness. Their son, David, an earnest and successful playwright, has vowed to reconnect with his father since coming out. Annabelle, their daughter, finds herself unmoored in Paris in the aftermath of a breakup. Harry eschews technology, so his family, spread out around the world, must communicate with him via snail mail. Even as they grapple with challenges, their correspondence sparkles with levity. They snipe at each other, volleying quips across the Atlantic, the Mediterranean, and Europe, and find joy in unexpected sources. Holy Lands captures the humor and poignancy of an adult family striving to remain connected across time, geography, and radically different perspectives on life. So, yeah. I should, I guess, also mention that this is an epistolary novel, so that should also hopefully help with diving in quickly and even being able to read full snippets in quick little bursts of time. And it's about to become a motion picture. It even has a trailer out, which I watched, although the trailer did make me a bit eyebrow-archy because for something that takes place in Israel, this does not feel at all like an Israeli movie or even a Jewish movie. It really looks a lot like a movie that takes place in the heartland of the U.S. Then again, most of my Jewish family lives in the heartland of the U.S., so maybe it is an incredibly Jewish movie. I'll definitely have to watch it and let you know. So that about covers it for me now. Alas, I was hoping to at least get to an AuthorTube video before I got to this Friday Reads, but it's been kind of a hectic week at work, so hopefully next week will be a little calmer. Because I want to do the AuthorTube, and I also was tagged in a BookTube tag, so I'd like to get to that as well. Anyway, thanks so much for watching, everyone, and I'll see you